Between the Buina and the Pontar is situated one of the most important kingdoms of the north, Redania, a realm of prosperity, nobility, and the highest of ambitions. Their history harkens back to the semi-mythological landing of the exiles, an event largely lost to history. The source of these people nor the cause of their exile are known. Yet from their landings at the Pontar Delta and the Yaruga, the Nordling ancestors who would go on to establish the various northern kingdoms were initially few in number, and largely disregarded by the more numerous elves. A mistake the elves would come to regret, as more and more land was claimed by these settlers, and one by one their great cities were abandoned. One such elven settlement, Nilfgaard, became the center of the first of the northern kingdoms. Under the reign of King Sambuk, the elven foundations were buried and the city was remade in its master's image. It was during this period of conflict that the modern conceptions of a state was formed. Within Redania, this conception took the form of a gradual entrenchment of the nobility, enshrining into law and custom the privileges of birth. Regardless of class, these true Redanians were equal before the law and king. In turn, the peasants, the serfs, were often treated fairly poorly, with most effectively living as slaves, their lives spent tilling the fields of their lords, dependent on them for their legal protection and subject to their whims. It is not unheard of for serfs to be gambled away or disposed of with little thought. Even so, under the iron rule of Radovid the Great, the realm experienced a period of growth, prospering from the trade in grains and other staple products. The king worked actively expanding the realm, dealing with problematic aristocrats, and seeing to the construction of what would become the much-vaunted Oxenfurt Academy. So lauded was his reign that he was held up as an exemplar and the namesake for future monarchs. His immediate successors sought to emulate his rule, continuing the policy of colonizing and pushing back the frontier, their ambition brewing resentment, and sensing an opportunity, a coalition of northern realms descended upon Redania, their armies occupying Nilfgaard, the Pontar Delta, and the fertile river valley of the Buina. Stripped of its greatest city, vast swaths of farmland, and effectively forced to give independence to Kovir, the kingdom was reduced, but its rulers remain unhumbled, plotting to regain their lost territories and building up their nation's naval power. It wouldn't be long, in fact, less than 2 generations, before the Redanians, rallied by Radovid III, marched to war. It was as if a whirlwind had descended upon the northern kingdoms. And even as the crows picked over the dead, Redania's position was bolstered, securing control of the Middle Pontar, concessions and access to the newly freed city-state of Nilfgaard. Even so, resentments lingered, and tensions mounted, and along the border with Aedern and Cadwyn, conflict remained an ever-present possibility. This growth saw an influx of wealth and prestige into the kingdom, or more specifically to its kings. So it was that petty jealousies evolved into kinslaying, perhaps the most infamous case being the eldest daughter of King Ridunk. Falka, raised in isolation, ignored and forgotten, she sought retribution. She sought the throne as her inheritance. And as she struck down her father, his new wife, and her half-brothers, her rebellion grew. No longer content for a mere change in leadership, it grew into a war against priests, against the nobles and the gentry and the general well-to-do. The violence spread beyond the borders of Redania into neighboring Temeria, and the kingdoms of the north have never seen so bloody a peasants' war, nor one so widespread. Only through the combined armies of Temeria and Redania were they able to bring down Falka, sending her to a fiery end and restoring the monarchy. This new monarch wasted little time seeking to discredit the fallen Falka, marking the holiday of Samhain with the burning of Falka in effigy, a constant reminder of the fate of traitors. These new monarchs quarreled with mages and sorcerers and sought to expand the nation's nascent intelligence network to an organization that would instill fear in those with treason in their hearts. They would bolster the royal army, enlarging it to a point where it could field some 35,000 men, and collectively building a corps of heavily armored cavalry. These new monarchs ushered the kingdom into a new age. Under the leadership of Vizimir II, the northern kingdoms banded together against the armies of Nilfgaard, ultimately succeeding in breaking that empire's advance at the Battle of Sodden Hill, a victory which for a time brought peace. Yet the unity that had held sway collapsed just as suddenly as it had been born. Border disputes, trade conflicts, and the demand for Novigrad battered the one-time allies, leaving them weak and divided, tempting targets for the Empire of Nilfgaard, who waited, plotting their next move. The first signs of a renewed conflict coming amongst the sorcerers and mages, with an event history has named the Thanid Coup, effectively ending the Brotherhood of Sorcerers in one night. And as the fates would have it, that same night King Vizimir II was murdered. As Nilfgaard once more advanced, Redania descended into chaos, the queen distraught with her husband's death, the economy in panicked freefall, and the nobles dividing into petty factions, seeking only to enrich themselves. Stories even tell of those who are willing to submit to Nilfgaardian rule. The realm was only spared by the power of the nation's intelligence service, who actively began hunting down and purging such traitorous elements. And a regency council was soon formed, with a mission to stabilize and save the realm. To this end, the kingdom sought loans to stabilize the nation's economy and to furnish forth a new army. As history would have it, no such army was needed. The still grieving queen received note to send an envoy to Sintra to negotiate a new peace with the Nilfgaardians. This peace confirmed, for the moment, both nations' borders, and, perhaps more importantly, confirmed to the intelligence network that the king's death had come from within the realm. Even so, tensions remained. Nilfgaard's holdings had expanded to the doorstep of the Northern Realm, and while nominally victorious, these Northern Realms were devastated, compelled to buy foodstuffs from their foreign enemies, very nearly completely dependent on their enemies' mercy. It was in this environment that King Radovid V would come of age, moving quickly to rein in the various nobles who sought to reign as independent fiefdoms. He built a council of allies and expanded the nation's royal army, recognizing that the war for the Northern Realms is not over. Only time will tell if this new king of Redania will rise to greatness and lead the North to victory. Or perhaps the fate conspires against the kingdom, and it will meet its final end beneath the tide of the Nilfgaard horde.